All right, so we finish with this and continue with next sif number 18. So it says, it is forbidden for one to sit within 4 amos of one who is praying Shemoneh Esrei prayer. Okay, we actually answered all these questions before. Okay, let's see. Or even to support himself by leaning on the object. All right, so one more time, it is forbidden for one to sit within the 4 amos of the one who is praying Shemoneh Esrei prayer, regardless of whether it is in front of him, behind him, or to the sides. Commentaries. When one sits adjacent to one who is praying Shemoneh Esrei, and he is not also engaged in prayer, it appears that if the person sitting down, does not wish to join in accepting upon himself the authority of HaShem. Mishnah Berurah. Okay. However, if the person sitting is also engaged in something that is part of the prayer service, it is permitted. So basically, it's not just sitting and reading newspaper, right? If he's praying, there is no problem. Maybe he's behind a little, right? Commentary. There is, even if he is not engaged in actual prayer, as long as it is somewhat connected to the prayer service, he may sit there. As an example of this, in the chapter of the Mishnah cited before, Psuki de Zimra, right? Or perhaps the tractate of what recited and Shabbos Mincha Soros, Mishnah Berurah. So basically something related to prayer. So all of this Carbonus stuff or Perkiavus, I mean, still it's related to prayer. So he's permitted to see. Some authority takes the lenient position that even if one is not engaged in the matters of the prayer, as long as he's studying Torah verbally, right? I mean, we always have to study verbally. He need not to distance himself. So I mean, so the basic idea not to show disregard. So in front of him, it's different, right? But we'll be talking about at least next time. Right? 86. According to this authority, as long as one is visibly studying Torah, not merely thinking Torah thoughts, it does not appear as if he is declining to accept upon himself authority of HaShem. See Mishnah Berurah, etc. Okay, and Mishnah Berurah writes, when possible, one should not rely on these authorities to sit in front or in front of or besides one who is praying. However, continue, and we're going to see, however, God-fearing person should not sit in front of the person who is praying Shemoneh Esrei. So if you finished, for example, this guy is late and he stands up, so just move a little so you're not exactly in front of him. Even if he is reciting Shema, right? So they say, even if you're reciting Shema, try not to sit in front of him. Commentary. Even though when one is actively accepting upon himself the authority of HaShem with his recitation of the Shema, the above reason, as we said before, does not apply, right? Meaning that he's disregard the Shekhinah, right? There is another reason to refrain from sitting in front of one who is reciting Shemoneh Esrei, which is what? When one sits in this position, it appears that the person praying and bowing behind him is bowing to him. And that person is praying and he bowing to the guy that sits in front of him. That's also an issue. Okay, let's continue. But even a God-fearing person need not be strict with regard to the sitting outside of 4 amos, behind or beside the person who is praying Shemoneh Esrei. So, right, 4 amos behind. Okay. Behind or on the sides. Moreover, standing is permitted in any case. So standing next to him, even in the 4 amos, there is no problem whatsoever. Even in the front of one who is praying Shemoneh Esrei. Since when he's standing, it does not look like he's being bowed to. Mishnah Berurah. Okay, so that was actually the answer. I mean, the bottom line, try not to sit in front somebody who is praying Shemoneh Esrei. So even if you finish and this guy came late and it's his fault 100%, and you sit, we understand that, but don't do it. You can remain standing or step to the side, but not in front of him. So let me check time. Okay, we have time. So let's do another one. Number 19. If one is sitting adjacent to one who is praying Shemoneh Esrei, is a weak person, he should not protest to him. Okay, so what do you mean? Even in the manner prescribed in the previous. So he's not obligated basically to stand. There are opinions who permit a weak person to sit, since it is readily apparent that he is sitting only due to his weakness, and therefore he does not appear to decline the acceptance upon himself the authority of HaShem. Shulchan Aruch, Mishnah Torah, etc. So basically, if he's fragile, we have one person in the shul where they go. This elderly person, he weighs maybe 60 pounds, and he's so thin and so fragile. But he comes to the minyan, Baruch HaShem. Right. So if this person wants to sit, so we just let him sit. We don't know if he can stand up. He can. It's hard for him to stand. So okay. So next CF number 20. If person sitting sat down first, and afterwards the other person came and stood to pray Shemoneh Esrei either beside him or in front of him, so that now it emerges that the person sitting is sitting behind or besides one who is praying, he need not to stand, since the one praying Shemoneh Esrei came into his domain. Nevertheless, it is Midas Hasidus, practice of the pious, to stand even in this case. Meaning he came before you, so move out so you're not directly in front of you, or you're out like 4 amos away. So in any direction, as we said before. However, if one is praying, came and stood behind him, so that now it emerges that he is sitting in front of the one who is praying, it is proper for him to be scrupulous and stand. So this guy did not mean, he didn't think about it, but now, what can he do? So it's proper to stand. Okay. Even though you're not obligated, but proper to. All these halachas with regard to the coming into the domain of another to pray, right? So domain meaning these 4 amos around him. Apply only when praying in. All of these halachas with regard to coming into the domain of another to pray apply only when praying in one's house. When praying in a house which is designated for a regular minyan, and certainly in a synagogue which is designated for every person to come and pray. In these cases, even if one sat down first and then another began to pray next to him, person who sat down must stand, since the place is designated for a prayer for each person, and it is therefore not considered the domain of any person. Okay, let me read it again. It's a little confusing. Why is it so? So let me read it again quickly. All of these halachas with regard to the coming into the domain of another to pray apply only when praying in one's house. However, when praying in a house which is designated for regular minyan, so it could be in a house, could be in a synagogue, and certainly in a synagogue, which is designated for every person to come and pray. In these cases, even if one sat down first, so he sat down first, and then another person began to pray next to him, the person who sat down must stand, since the place is designated for the prayer of each person, and it is therefore not considered the domain of any person. It's very strange. That's, I think Shulchan Aruch is saying something different, I think. But let's leave it at this. I mean, they say in in a shul, if anybody comes and stand next to you, he's guys led, so you must stand. Okay, let's leave it for now.